Imagine this. The best pasta sauce you have ever tasted sits abandoned on a plate. Wasted sauce. That is a tragedy. If only you had used Barilla al Bronzo pasta. Its bronze-cut texture holds your sauce and scoops up every last drop. The Italians call that scarpetta. Capture sauce the Italian way. Barilla al Bronzo. Click or tap the banner to find out more.
The following is a Red Apple Podcast Network presentation.
They say this is a big rich town. I just come from the poet's part. Bright light, city life, I gotta make it.
Welcome to Dominic Carter's podcast. This is Dominic Carter's City Hall. Now, here's Dominic Carter.
Red Apple Podcast Talk Radio 77 WABC. You can listen to me, Dominic Carter, live on the radio Monday through Friday, midnight to 1 a.m. Friday night in New York City alone, a dozen people shot, 2 killed during a bloody 15-hour span. Much has been said about President Biden's State of the Union address, which, by the way, was the clearest indication to date that he is running for re-election. But one part of the speech in particular seemed to stand out in my mind and to receive a lot of attention. Biden renewed his call for police reform, but I also have to ponder, where are all the protests and calls for change when a police officer is killed? This is my podcast. Let's go. All of this nonsense against our police and demonizing law enforcement must stop. Look at something just recently out of New York City. The Progressive Caucus of the City Council wants a new set of policy objectives that includes a commitment to, quote, reduce the size and scope of the NYPD, unquote. But thank God for this. That so-called Progressive Caucus had 35 members, and now it's down to 20 members. Almost half of the caucus is refusing to go along with the ridiculous plan to reduce the size and scope of the NYPD. Sanity prevailed. You cannot cut the size and the scope of the NYPD. This is La La Land. So with much fanfare in his State of the Union address, President Biden renewed his pledge that police officers who violate the public trust should be held accountable. The reality is that the very few officers that do cross the line, they are accountable. I am sick and tired of the far left ruining our country, and those with the loudest voice in the room seem to push the agenda in America these days to the detriment of the country, especially on the police reform topic. I repeat, where are all the protests and calls for change when a police officer is killed? Folks, I'm glad President Biden noted most police officers are good, decent, honorable people, and they risk their lives every time they put that shield on. That is the reality, and we must never lose sight of that. So President Biden says, and in a moment you'll hear his actual words, quote, what happened to Tyree in Memphis happens too often. We have to do better. Referring to the death of 29-year-old Tyree Nichols, the African-American man who was fatally beaten by Memphis police officers in January. Nichols repeatedly cried, "Mom, Mom," as the 5 African-American Memphis police officers charged with his murder hit him with kicks, punches, and baton blows after a January 7th traffic stop. All seen in videos released by the city. President Biden spent about 5 to 6 minutes out of his approximately 70-minute State of the Union address on the police reform issue. Listen here for yourself.
Your burger is served, and this is our finest Pepsi Zero Sugar. Its sweet profile perfectly balances the savory notes of your burger.
That is one perfect combination. Burgers deserve Pepsi.
Look, COVID left its scars, like the spike in violent crime in 2020, the first year of the pandemic. We have an obligation to make sure all people are safe. Public safety depends on public trust, as all of us know. But too often that trust is violated. Joining us tonight are the parents of Tyree Nichols. Welcome. We had to bury Tyree last week. As many of you personally know, there's no words to describe the heartache or grief of losing a child. But imagine if you lost that child at the hands of the law. Imagine having to worry whether your son or daughter came home from walking down the street, or playing in the park, or just driving a car. Most of us in here have never had to have the talk that brown and black parents have had to have with their children. Bo, Hunter, Ashley, my children, I never had to have the talk with them. I never had to tell them if a police officer pulls you over, turn your interior lights on right away. Don't reach for your license. Keep your hands on the steering wheel. Imagine having to worry like that every single time your kid got in a car. Here's what Tyree's mother shared with me when I spoke to her. When I asked her how she finds the courage to carry on and speak out. With the faith of God, she said her son was, quote, a beautiful soul, and something good will come of this. Imagine how much courage and character that takes. It's up to us, to all of us. We all want the same thing. Neighborhoods free of violence. Law enforcement who earns the community's trust. Just as every cop, when they pin on that badge in the morning, has a right to be able to go home at night, so does everybody else out there. Our children have a right to come home safely. Equal protection under the law is a covenant we have with each other in America. We know police officers put their lives on the line every single night and day. And we know we ask them in many cases to do too much, to be counselors, social workers, psychologists, responding to drug overdoses, mental health crises. In one sense, we ask much too much of them. I know most cops and their families are good, decent, honorable people, the vast majority. But they risk and they risk their lives every time they put that shield on. But what happened to Tyree in Memphis happens too often. We have to do better. Give law enforcement the real training they need. Hold them to higher standards. Help them succeed in keeping us safe. We also need more first responders and professionals to address the growing mental health, substance abuse challenges. More resources to reduce violent crime and gun crime. More community intervention programs. More investment in housing, education, and job training. All this can help prevent violence in the first place. And when police officers or police departments violate the public trust, they must be held accountable. With the support of the families of victims, civil rights groups, and law enforcement, I signed an executive order for all federal officers banning chokeholds, restricting no-knock warrants, and other key elements of the George Floyd Act. Let's commit ourselves to make the words of Tyler's mom true. Something good must come from this. Something good. And all of us, folks, it's difficult, but it's simple. All of us in this chamber, we need to rise to this moment. We can't turn away. Let's do what we know in our hearts that we need to do. Let's come together to finish the job on police reform. Do something. Do something.
President Biden from his State of the Union address, but I again repeat, where are the protests and calls for change when a police officer is killed? What scares me is that the far left is having way too much of a say these days, and as a result of their so-called police reform policies, crime is back to being out of control. The rebuttal to the State of the Union address came from Arkansas Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders, and she was right on point as she blasted Biden, but even more, the wokeness in America.
I'll be the first to admit, President Biden and I don't have a lot in common. I'm for freedom, he's for government control. At 40, I'm the youngest governor in the country. And at 80, he's the oldest president in American history. I'm the first woman to lead my state, and he's the first man to surrender his presidency to a woke mob that can't even tell you what a woman is.
And folks, always remember, with all the hoopla surrounding police reform, that most officers are good, decent, honorable people. And as Biden says himself, they do risk their lives every time they put that shield on. And that brings this episode to a close. We thank you folks for joining us. You can catch me on 77 WABC Monday through Friday, midnight to 1 a.m. Dominic Carter, Red Apple Podcast, Talk Radio 77 WABC.
Dominic Carter Socials on Twitter at Dominic TV and Facebook and Instagram. Dominic Carter TV. Email at dominic.carter@wabcradio.com. Until the next episode, be well. And as Dominic always says, stay positive. The glass is always half full, never half empty. Dominic Carter City Hall.